Of Leeds. I'm a toxicologist but involved in teaching medical students, and I have been involved with Leader Jim and Liz since the inception of these institutes, and so it is an absolute delight to be here with you this morning. And it's my privilege to introduce the session this morning. What we would like to do is initially have you greet one another, but you've had time at your tables while we've been preparing to do that. There will be an opportunity throughout the day for you to interact with other people, and that is all part of this particular institute. We have a number of different ideas and principal themes, and Leader has discussed those, but it's very much about the responsibility of scientists and marrying that with interactive ways of engaging individuals. And we hope that after this particular workshop you will have a much greater awareness of different approaches, conduct of science, and that this will enable you to do that sort of discussion in your own institutions. I'm trying to operate my glasses and move around with the sarong without this dropping off, so have sympathy for me. So, in view of the time, and as people have had an opportunity to talk to one another, we won't spend any particular time on this. What we're trying to do is avoid us at the front being the speakers all the time. So normally this would be a session where you would talk to one another, but you've already done that. And so this is very much about, as I said, teaching responsible science. And as active scientists, you are well aware that science has no boundaries. We are about open communication of information. We want to discuss our ideas with other people. We want to have them challenge us about those opinions. And in this sort of discourse, we arrive at some idea of an approach, we correct our own views about things, and we don't assume that we're always correct, and indeed we often aren't. And it's about this interchange that we are about. This is the very nugget of science. It is about discourse. It is not about hierarchy, but it is about looking to your peers, and it is about listening to them, valuing experience, but also being open to new ideas. Ethics, which is very much part of this discussion, is about this as well. It is about listening to other people's points of view, because we all have our own opinions, but we need to listen to other people, and we exchange these ideas, and in this way we help to fashion our own views, and that's what we're going to try and do today. So, the issues really are about why should you teach responsible science? I mean, as scientists, we're interested in our careers, that's how we get on. We want to be university professors, so we want to publish. But it's not a case of, if I want to get there, I will stand on you, and I will stand on you, and I will climb up over other people. It's very much about doing things in a way that are reproducible, that are accurate, that other people can build on, but we can also vouch for what we have done. So there is an integrity about it, and there is an honesty about what we do. So this is very much about the responsibility in science. Issues around biosafety and biosecurity are not new ones. And of course there has been much concern about biosecurity issues. and particularly driven in the United States after the release of anthrax from a number of letters that were sent to senior US congressmen and to people in Indonesia in 2001. Biosecurity, though, is quite an alien concept to scientists. And so the question is how you discuss this particular issue. Because if you go to many biological scientists and practicing scientists and say, what are you doing that could be used to make a biological weapon, for example? What? What are you talking about? I'm working on malaria or Ebola, or I'm looking at TB, or I'm looking at some animal pathogen. How on earth is this going to be connected with biological weapons? And so you have on one side the biosecurity people who are concerned about misuse of science and ideas being incorporated by scientists and being misused. And you have the scientists who want to have open communication. They want to exchange ideas. And this particular workshop, there was one in Warsaw in 2009, what it discussed was how you introduce the topic of biosecurity and biosafety into a scientific curriculum, how you can work to engage scientists. And the consensus that was arrived at was that scientists, you need to train scientists. You need to teach them how to work in a laboratory. You need to teach them how to engage with one another, how to do their practice well, good laboratory notebooks, open communication. And really the way of teaching biosecurity is to add that on to the proper responsible conduct of science. So you don't bring in biosecurity as a separate two-module curriculum. You introduce it into the normal training of scientists, and it fits into an overall package which we call responsible conduct. And that's really how we're going to do it today. So it's about adding it to the normal training of scientists. And that's what this workshop concluded. Now there is a substantial literature out here on ethics and the responsibility of scientists. Some of the authors, Lida and Liz, are here. And really, the issue that we're concerned about is that ethics is not something that is discussed in any way with many scientists. It is a difficult and sometimes alien concept for scientists. Doctors or clinicians are used to discussing ethics because it's about treating people and not causing harm to individual patients. For scientists, it's a more nebulous concept. What is harm if you're working with a test tube, for example, or you're working with a pathogen on an agar plate? So how do you discuss issues around ethics when you're talking about biological scientists or chemists? And it's about finding a way of having this communication that we are all about. And particularly as scientists are moving across countries, many scientists move to different institutions. They might have trained initially in Indonesia, they go to the United States for something, for some additional experience, and there are different practices in different institutions. So it's very much about learning about different practices, understanding the different cultures, but also being aware of what responsible science means in different cultures. And it is important to be able to do that. And ethics training increasingly is part of that experience. We have a committee of a number of individuals, some of whom are here. And we have run a number of these workshops, as Lida has said. And the three core themes are about professionalism, about doing science responsibly, and about being part of a community of those responsible individuals. as Lida said too, we had an institute in Malaysia. I'll show you in a moment roughly what these programs are about. So at this particular workshop, we had people from Indonesia, India, and Pakistan. We have had institutes involving Egyptian scientists, and the Egyptian scientists are now running their own institutes. So what we have done is we have been involved in the training of some of our Egyptian colleagues so that they themselves are able to facilitate these workshops. Some of us have gone along to these particular meetings, more or less to be in the background, to assist our colleagues if they needed any assistance. And they really didn't need very much. They had been, as we were very pleasantly pleased to note, well trained and were very able facilitators. We have had a brief workshop, or a smaller workshop, in Bangalore. Some of our colleagues, Clarissa Dirks and Nancy Connell, were involved in running some programs in India, and they ran a slightly shorter workshop than the normal 5 or 6 day one that we normally cover. And what we have done is run these international institutes. There was a separate discussion on ethics in Algeria, and then the workshops that we have run included participants from these particular countries: Algeria, Egypt, India, Iraq, Jordan, Lebanon, Libya, Malaysia, Morocco, Pakistan, Turkey, and the Yemen. So you can see what we have done is focused very much on North Africa and the Middle East, and a little bit in Southeast Asia. This is where we have had opportunities, been able to work with colleagues to enable them to help us run these meetings. This is a normal program. The text is very small. You're not going to be able to see it all from where you are. It's really just to show you the sort of framework for our normal workshops. We run them usually over a 6-day period. We have an initial training day for facilitators, and then some of the themes that we're going to cover in this particular meeting we will do today, but we do those over the 6-day period along with others. But at the same time, we get people to work in groups with particular themes, to work out presentations, incorporating the ideas of active learning that they learn in the workshops. And then finally, on the final day, they present this information to the rest of the group. So it's a very interactive process all the way through where people are learning. Today, we just have this very brief 1.5 day workshop, and you have the program in front of you, and you can have a look at that at your leisure. So we're going to merge these best practices with teaching responsible science. So what I would like you to do now is to have a discussion around your table around these 2 questions. What are the current efforts in your institution to teach responsible conduct of science? And what do you think should happen in your institution to enable you to do that? So those 2 questions. I'll leave the questions on the board. So they are: what should happen in your institution? And is anything happening at the moment around responsible conduct of science? You may have individual training on different issues. It doesn't matter if nothing is happening. It's a question really of what you might like to happen. So if you can have that discussion now in your groups, and then we will circulate. Yes, please, any questions?
we discussed in our group. Could you just elaborate a bit about the responsible conduct of science before we start discussing in our group?
Very good question. And there's a big debate about what responsible conduct of science is. As you will see in this particular workshop, we're going to talk about training of individuals, we're going to talk about plagiarism, falsification, fabrication of data, mentoring of students, training of individuals, exchange of information, how you communicate effectively with one another. What sort of training do you do? Do you have any training in ethics? So it is all around these particular issues. So I suppose if you're not sure about what responsible is, and we could have a big discussion about what responsible is, it's about the sort of training you do with your young scientists and your students. So it's what kind of training do you have? What sort of discussions do you have with your students? Is there a mentoring process? In other words, do individuals take other younger students, younger colleagues under their wing, guide them in their careers, talk to them about particular moves, what might be successful, what would be good for their careers? Do you discuss ethics in any way? So what might be appropriate or inappropriate? Do you discuss how you keep your records? You know, do you have open laboratory notebooks that people can check to see that the information is valid? Do you have any discussion around copying other people's work and claiming it is your own? Or do you have some measures in place to correct what people might present? So it is largely about the training of individuals that we are interested in at the moment. Is that okay? Is that clear enough for people? So this discussion initially then can largely just be about how you train young people, how you train your scientists. So don't worry too much about the responsible side of it at the moment, just about the training of your young scientists. Jim?
I was going to ask you, what about your own colleagues? What are the discussions that you have in your department, in your institution, about the kinds of things that your institution ought to be doing to ensure that scientists are acting responsibly?
And we will circulate to help encourage that discussion.
Have a discussion among the people that you're
Thank you for the presentations. I heard that you have mentioned about code of ethics. So actually, I'm still confusing about the differences between among code of ethics, code of conduct, and code of practice. Maybe you can try to explain to us about it. Thank you.
Okay, this is becoming a little more technical. Some people might be thinking about the codes. If you're training people, do you have different codes? And codes can fall into different categories. You can have a code of ethics, an ethical code, like doctors have the Hippocratic Oath. And that is largely about you will do no harm. And as I said, for scientists, this is quite a difficult concept. If you're working with test tubes, or you're doing something with radioactivity, what is the harm? Where is the harm? Well, there could be harm to yourself as an individual, there could be danger for your colleagues, so it's very much about how you do your work responsibly. So this could be part of a code of ethics. A code of conduct is something where if you belong to the Indonesian Institute of Biological Scientists, for example, I'm making this up, to be a practicing member of the Institute of Biological Scientists, a committee or the the grouping may feel that you should behave in a particular way and conduct your science in a particular way that enables you to be a member of this group of biological scientists. So code of conduct is very much about an institution and the membership of that, and about obeying certain rules to allow you to become a member of this particular institution. And finally, code of practice could be if you work in a university, you have to follow certain rules about safety and environmental cleanup and so on. You could have guidelines as well, yes, but I don't think this is something you need to be too concerned about sort of at the moment. But I mean, they are guidelines. Institutions have codes of practice, and this is very much about how you do things in your laboratory and so on.
If I may add from the ethicist perspective a different question that may illustrate part of what Alistair's been trying to say, and that also looks at your question of codes. If you don't have a code, how do you be ethical? Can you be ethical if the rules haven't been written down? How do you teach things if the rules haven't been written down? That may help the conversation.
Yeah. Regarding your question about code of conduct, I just want to share that the Indonesian Academy of Science has launched a code of conduct on biosecurity, which is kind of like the one that produced by the Royal Netherlands of Academy of Science, endorsing the appeal from inter-academy panel. So that code of conduct that here is actually kind of a behavior. It's more to yourself, whether you actually act to one which is written down, many aspects, including, say for example, biorisk management, how to work in the lab, how to actually make everyone safe from whatever that you do. There's more to it.
So, thank you. What we would like you now to do is to talk amongst yourselves. So rather than we have a big open discussion with everybody, just talk at your table about what you do in your institutions to train people. Okay? And we will circulate.